The Monster in the Twilight. By Jorg. Chapter 8. Kindness. Are you Gythurithith? Twist trotted closely behind Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo down the narrow path leading deeper into the ever-free forest, her eyes wide with fear as she twitched away from the sound of every broken twig or animal call. Scootaloo rolled her eyes. It's perfectly safe. Apple Bloom has been coming down here for weeks to meet with Monster. The little orange filly jumped over a few tree limbs, that had fallen over the path and kept walking, looking around eagerly in the afternoon sunlight. There were a lot of tree branches scattered around the forest clearing that had not been there the day before yesterday. Sweetie Belle hopped over the branches with a sigh. It's a shame how Apple Bloom's family is punishing her for this. If we get Monster to go with us over to her house, we can show them she's not dangerous. Maybe we can even get cookies. I'll try, said Twist hesitantly as she stumbled over the tree branches on the path. I still don't know why you wanted my help. I'll just get in the way. Don't be silly, Twist. Monster got spooked by Scootaloo, and I'm too afraid to talk with it. Her. I think she's a she. Anyway, you've made friends with Everpony in school. Even Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon don't really hate you that much. Sweetie Belle grinned nervously. Just think of her as a really new student. Who's big? With scars. And who doesn't talk very good. Scoots and I will be right over here in this bush if you need us. They vanished into a nearby bush, leaving Twist all alone in the clearing. Hello. Twist crept around the damaged bush until all that could be seen was her bushy red mane trembling above the tattered branches. I'th a pony in here. Apple Bloom said Monster's really shy, shouted Scootaloo over the bush. She may be inside the bush, hiding. Scootaloo, shouted Sweetie Belle. Stop yelling. Right, shouted Scootaloo. Try not to make too much noise. And see if she knows how to work out this week's spelling words. I don't think any pony ith in here, called Twist in a shaky voice. Tomething hath been clawing the ground around here. It all scratchy. Ah, groaned Scootaloo. I was going to take her for a ride on my scooter too. Oh, like that will calm her down, scoffed Sweetie Belle, coughing as she waved a hoof. Scootaloo, did you eat Mexi cold food yesterday? Me? She who smelled it, dealt it. I thought you were too lady-like to toot. Twist had stopped cold once she came back around the mangled bush and was staring in Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo's direction, seemingly frozen in place. Both of the little fillies quit waving their hooves around to dissipate the noxious odor and slowly turned around to see a giant wolf made of jumbled together branches and chunks of splintered trees, glaring down at them. A green blast of thick fumes roiled out from underneath it, and the timber wolf lunged forward at the little fillies. Scootaloo grabbed her friend and bolted straight at Twist, closely followed by the rumbling pile of angry branches. A second and third wolf rapidly began to gather themselves together on the path, and in the shadows around the forest clearing, angry yellow eyes began to appear. Scootaloo, stop Hwattery-oomph. Twist fairly bounced as her friend body checked her into the bush, dropping in on top of her with Sweetie Belle right behind. Thoth are timber wolves, squealed Twist, still on the bottom side of the three-pony pileup. I know. Help me look for a secret door or a hidden tunnel or something. Scootaloo began furiously digging around in the dirt under the bush. That's right. Apple Bloom said Monster just snuck into the bush without her seeing. There must be a tunnel under here. Dirt fountained into the air as the three ponies dug furiously, the sound of growling growing nearer and nearer around their tattered bush. The cloying stench of decaying vegetation swept under the bush at the same time as one huge paw began to part the branches, slowly, as if to savor the screaming from the three fillies trapped inside. The huge timber wolf was newly formed, or it would have understood why the rest of its fellow creatures suddenly cringed back into the forest when a small patchy unicorn came galloping into the clearing. One wolf who moved too slowly out of the way found its velocity abruptly increased until it left a trail of friction-ignited twigs in a straight line across the clearing. It was only a short line, because it intersected a towering tree with disastrous consequences, vanishing in a spray of burning twigs and splinters that scattered out into the green woods away from the screaming little ponies. The thunderous crash did not distract the timber wolf who was looming over the bush, entranced by the flood of panic and terror wafting up from its captives. The flood of emotions only grew as it lowered its bushy paw, totally missing the darkness skittering across the body of the running unicorn behind him, a blackened aura that enveloped her horn and leapt across the clearing faster than she could run. Down became up and sideways for a moment when gravity went from a constant to a radical variable in its vicinity, making the timber wolf tumble backwards and into a nearby tree. It rolled to its paws and growled at the small creature who had the audacity to chase it away from such tantalizing sources of fear. The whole clearing practically shimmered with the emotion, driven by the three tasty little creatures inside the bush, and cascading in waves off the larger one. It was a delightful feast, crowned by anger and rage that lit a fire inside the timber wolf with a tugging sensation. A rather strange tugging sensation. In fact, it tugged at all of the wolf's body, from his bushy tail to each paw, drawing them all in the direction of the dark fire burning in its chest. Gravity crushed it to the ground with a whine while the darkness flared with the snapping noise of small twigs, and then larger branches. The timber wolf struggled in vain while the insatiable tug increased, drawing its paws and head closer and closer to the chest until it looked like nothing more than a spherical ball of wood, outlined in black fire. A shrinking sphere. Monster continued to focus her will on the shrinking darkness. It hurt others. It would pay. It would not hurt anymore. Her concentration was disrupted by a small tan thunderbolt on four legs that bowled into her side with an excited shriek of, "Thank you! Thank you! Thank you!" Monster released her grip on the crushed timber wolf, now no more than a blackened smoking cinder lightly sprinkled with sparkles on the forest floor, and tried to see out from the red poofy mane that obscured her vision. The feeling was strange. Only one other had ever held her this way. It was nice. All the anger and fear coursing through her body and feeding her magic began to drain away, replaced by another kind of hunger. She sniffed. The red poofy mane smelled good, of flavors and tastes that danced around the inside of her mind and tickled her memory. She sniffed again, this time using her magic ever so slightly. The strange creature smelled like Bloom and Scoots and Sweetie but not like Mac or Sis. She took another sniff, just in case, and Monster's ears drooped. Its shoulder was wet. The good-smelling one was sad. Water leaked from the face when you were sad. The bitter smell of Bloom's blood had been all over the bush. Monster had hurt Bloom. The rising surge of magic inside her took a lot of will to fight back. The good-smelling one sobbing into her neck would be hurt if she fled. She tugged against the iron-like grip of the earth pony filly. Once she was at a safe distance, she could use her spell to flee. "Sweetie Belle, did you see that?" Scootaloo hopped up and down energetically in the remnants of their bush. That big wolf was like zap, and then Monster came running up and pow, and it got all dark and smoky and turned into a lump. That was so cool. She's almost as cool as Rainbow Dash. The little orange filly dashed out into the clearing to hop excitedly around her new hero while Sweetie Belle still huddled in the bottom of her hole with her forehooves over her head. "Are we dead yet?" Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It took nearly an hour to calm down Twist enough to pry her off Monster's neck, during which time they managed to find another intact bush large enough for the four of them to huddle under. Despite the really cool way she had chased away the timber wolves, Monster looked depressed and weepy, the way Auntie Fix always looked when her secret chocolate stash had been mysteriously depleted. There was no danger of running out of candy though, because each of them had one of Twist's ever-present supplies of cinnamon sticks in their mouths while Sweetie Belle carefully described to Monster the horrible fate that had befallen Apple Bloom and the aggressively protective way Big Mac had been protecting her, even to the embarrassing point of being at the school during recess. Superscript 1. 1. not that there was a chance of sneaking out during recess to go visit Monster anyway. Miss Cheerily always kept Scootaloo's scooter locked up during school hours, because of something she called liability insurance. Monster put her head down on the bare dirt under the bush and sighed. Fault, the little stub of cinnamon stick vanished inside her mouth with a crunching sound, but even that did not seem to slow the tears that had begun to track down her cheeks. "It's not your fault," said Twist compassionately while sticking a fresh cinnamon stick into Monster's mouth. "Zzz2 hurt boom hurt mac hurt book haim naul." Larger tears streamed down Monster's face as her horn glowed briefly and a tattered half of a book plopped to the ground, sliced clean through as if by some impossibly sharp knife. "Boom. You mean a spell you cast could have hurt Apple Bloom like the book? That wasn't your fault. You were just startled. My sister gets startled all the time when I make noise." Superscript 2. Around the house. 2. Collapsing shelves, falling boxes, plates, cups. Gravity and Sweetie Belle were in constant conflict. Boog. The remaining cinnamon stick vanished with a grinding noise and was quickly replaced. Although the tears diminished, they did not stop. "It's just a dumb, old book," scoffed Scootaloo, not spotting the spark of ire in Monster's watery eyes at her heretical statement. "I'm the one who surprised you, so I'll go buy a replacement at the bookstore. I've got some money saved up." Your problems aren't that bad." Twist gently patted Monster's short mane, holding onto her last cinnamon stick just in case. "Apple Bloom just got a little scratch on her ear, so you didn't hurt Big Mac that way." Monster shook her head, splattering tears across the ground. "Did Thgarberee? You scared Big Mac?" "He not scared of anything." Monster blinked away the last of the tears and glared at the ground, focusing her magic on a small patch of dirt. The soil churned and boiled, rising up and shaping together into a small shape of a stout familiar stallion, complete with the right coloring, harness and a feature the little fillies had never seen before. The violet magic around the clay doll sat it to one side as a matching smaller unicorn figure began to take shape, and in a matter of moments, both statuettes sat next to each other. "Cool. Sweet. What's that underneath Big Mac?" "SHH, Sweetie Belle. It's like a puppet show." A pale aura of magic surrounding the two figures made them move, with the stallion bouncing slowly along the ground while the unicorn hid behind a rock. Suddenly, the unicorn doll hopped out from behind the rock to bounce around the red stallion, rubbing up against him and shoving her tail in his face. The stallion hopped around the ground, closely pursued by the unicorn until Monster threw the small doll of Big Mac outside the bush, and pushed the unicorn doll over on its side with an agonized sob. "Oh!" Twist patted Monster on the neck and got out another cinnamon stick. "You wanted Big Mac to be your special Tommy Pony, and he ran away. Well, duh." Scootaloo crossed her forelegs and frowned. "It looks like she almost tackled him and rubbed her tail in his face." "Ew. I mean," the little filly stammered when Monster collapsed on the ground and started to cry again. "That's not how you make a special some pony." "Yeah," said Sweetie Belle with a happy chirp to her voice. "You need to dress up in a really fancy outfit. And give them sweets and flowers and cute little cards with thanks on them," said Twist. "And roses. Auntie Fix says roses are the way to a stallion's heart." Scootaloo paused, thinking of the intended target. "But I think for Big Mac, you may want something that matches his interests better." Morning dawned brightly over Sweet Apple Acres, the first thin beam of sunlight filtering through the tall tree outside of Big Mac's bedroom and in through the window. Sunlight always brought him to that drowsy state of wakefulness that preceded the thought of the long line of chores awaiting his attention. He rolled out of bed to trudge to the bathroom, a routine that had occupied nearly his entire life at the farm ever since he had gotten old enough to put on a yoke and pull a plow. It was a welcome routine, so well worn and polished that he could have followed it through pitch darkness by the familiar dents he had worn in the floorboards of the house. But today, something was different. Contrary to popular opinion, Big Macintosh was not dumb. He was just very measured in the way he approached both problems and decisions. Without the need for checklists, he was fully able to run all the activities of a farm, including the financial reports, in a way that made the highly complex tasks appear almost non-existent. Very few things surprised him in life, which is why when his mind finally managed to work out what was bothering him, he only paused momentarily in his toothbrushing, finishing the rest of his bathroom activities before plodding back to his bedroom to double-check his observation. It was still there. He had not put it there. It had not been there last night. And it certainly had not gotten up and walked there on its own. That meant some pony else had moved it there. He opened the window and picked an apple blossom off the tree outside, to give it a sniff and a taste. Niagara apple. There were 42 of them in the far southwest field. And none of them by the house. AJ, he called out, his voice only slightly quavery. Since when do we have an apple tree outside Mehwinder?